All right. Hello, Lauren Grace here. I am host of the Afterlight and welcome to the show. So today I'm going to be talking about setting intentions, being kind to ourselves, and igniting the fire within. Just a side note, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you know somebody who would be a great fit for the Afterlight program, please do send me an email at welcometo@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram and over on YouTube as well. So today I wanted to jump on and talk to you. Obviously, the Afterlight is always chock full of amazing guests, and we've got some amazing guests lined up in forthcoming weeks as well. But I really wanted to kind of take a moment to stop and just connect with you, especially as it's the end of the year. Here in Australia, it's actually December 31st, 2020, and I'm recording this while I'm away on holidays. And I just, I'm not really one for New Year's resolutions or anything like that, but I do love the idea of taking time to reflect on where I've been over the last year, on the changes that have come, and on the intentions and, the dreams that I really want to bring forth in the next coming year. So I thought that, maybe we would talk a little bit about that today, a little bit about being intentional, a little bit about recognizing what nurtures you and nurtures your soul. And obviously I'll just share my experiences and, maybe it might inspire you to think about your own soul's journey as well and consider what you might want to, start to attract and to start to bring into your life a little bit more of. So obviously, these kind of reflections, these intention settings, goal settings, or just dream wishes can happen at any time. You don't obviously need to wait for the end of the year for that to take place. But, it does seem as though the culmination of a year and the start of a new one is always like a natural time for us to sort of stop and evaluate and then get ready for the next adventure ahead. So for me, I guess what I'm doing at this moment is I'm kind of taking a bit of an inventory, a bit of a thought about, what nurtures my soul and what lights me up. I read somewhere, I listened to a podcast the other day, and one of the guests said that an average person with an average life lives an average of 27,350 days. And when I heard that, it really made me pause and question what I'm doing with my time and making sure that I'm spending time on things that I want to do and not have to do, with people that lift me up, and spending my energy on things that nurture and support the person that I am and also the woman that I want to grow into become. So I guess when I was thinking this morning about what I wanted to talk to you about, I thought that it would be best to just kind of highlight some of the things that I do or the things that I've reflected on that really do support me and nurture me and are intentions of where I want to spend more of my time in the forthcoming year. So for me, reading has always been a big one. Reading has always been obviously a doorway to using my imagination, to different perspectives, to information. It really is the most amazing thing that somebody with 20, 30, 40, 50, 5 years experience even can take the time and give you all of their information and all of their goodness in a book that you can buy for, $20. It's just unbelievable. I think that, books for me have been the catalyst for significant and incredible life changes in my life, and that I would like to read more of them is essentially where I'm going with this. So bringing into 2021 rather, my intention is definitely going to be spending some more time reading. Yoga for me is something that nurtures my soul and really just allows my emotions out so that they don't necessarily stay blocked inside. And yin yoga especially just really gives me an opportunity to just release and to love myself, that little bit more, to nurture myself and take the time to, see how I'm doing and check in and be quiet. So, you know, bringing forth more time, creating more time, scheduling in my week more time for yoga, especially for yin yoga, is definitely going to be a major intention for me for 2021. So another thing that I'm going to be spending some time making time for and being intentional about is actually taking the time to reflect and to listen within. I don't know about you, but for me, I guess you could say I like to be a high achiever. I have a lot of goals. I've got a lot of projects that I want to do. I've got a lot of, sort of dreams and wishes that I'd like to fulfill. And I think that sometimes it's really easy to get really busy doing all these things. And we don't always take time to pause and to reflect on what our inner voice is saying, what the messages our heart is whispering, what the guidance we're getting from the universe is telling us. I think that if we get too busy, if we spend too much time in our heads, not enough time in our body or in nature or just being where we are at that moment, that we could miss those really incredible and those important glimpses of insight, of inspiration, of, even answers, for example. I know that over the last few days, when I've taken some time out, I've had some serious clarity where I've been able to think about, again, who I want to be. Am I acting like that? Where I want to go, and then just allowing that inspiration to really come and to enter and then listen to it. Sometimes we get those little nuggets of wisdom, those little golden gems, and we forget to also listen. We go, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, but then we don't actually put it into practice or write it down or listen a little bit more to get, those little pieces of nuggets, those little pieces of wisdom on the tail end of that. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be doing. Meditating for me is going to be a major thing that I also continue to spend time on and be intentional about in 2021, getting to know my spirit team, getting to know my guides that much better, getting to know myself and to continue to connect with my inner knowing and develop that. Developing my intuition and gifts. So again, a lot of that is going to be coming from reading and listening within and speaking with people like you and guests on the show for different perspectives, different ideas on, what works for some people. I also am going to be spending a little bit more time being kind to myself and nurturing and supporting myself. I think that sometimes we can be hard on ourselves, even as spiritual people, even as souls that understand that, we're here to live a life of love and light. I sometimes, am hard on myself, I guess you could say. And I'd like to be more intentional about understanding that I'm doing the best that I can. And that as I learn more and I do better, as I know better, I'll do better. And I know that Maya Angelou had a quote around that. And it's so true. When we know better, we do better. And I think that, being more intentional about being kind and generous to myself is going to be way better than, the opposite of that, which is being hard on myself and not necessarily always being kind. So I know it's a journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, whether or not, that's something that you also struggle with, self-love and that. So another thing that I'm going to be intentional about is dancing more. And actually it just popped in my head, singing more. Okay, I hear you. So dancing and singing more. So for me, I've always loved dancing and singing. And I just think that, I don't always carve out those opportunities to do that as much. I remember I did a really powerful meditation a couple of months ago, and it was where I actually got to go and speak with my future self. And one of the questions that, the guided meditation narrator said is like, ask them, do they have any advice for you? And when I asked her, my future self, whether or not she had any advice, she recommended I dance more. And so I'm definitely taking that on board. And I actually created a really awesome playlist. So what I'll do is I'll put in the show notes here a playlist that I've created to kind of get my fire started, to get my juices running, get my booty shaking, however you want to say it. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But I would love to know, do you dance? And if you do, what songs light your soul on fire? please do share them with me and I can add them to the playlist, or even make a playlist point too, like the Listers of the Afterlights, Light My Fire playlist or something like that. So I guess what I'd like to recommend that you think about is, what in your life brings you joy? And sometimes when we go, okay, what in my life brings me joy? You might get a flash of an answer right away. Listen to that answer. And if it doesn't come so quickly, that's all right. Maybe just be quiet, take time to reflect and listen, or even write it down and come back to it and think about it a little bit later if you feel inspired then. What brings out laughter in your life? What brings out inspiration? What brings out happiness? I think so often, like I said, we go through the motions of the day and we actually forget that time is slowly ticking on by. And if we blink, we can miss it. And if we recognize that, at least for myself, that when I am happy and joyful and laughing and inspired, that's the kind of life that I want to live every day. It's not the kind of life where I'm stressed and maybe feeling anxiety or maybe feeling down or, things aren't flowing. That's definitely not for me. I want to live a life of joyful laughter and happiness where, things in my life just feel good and they feel light. So I do believe that, if we take time to reflect on the things that bring us that in our life, we can be more intentional about making sure that we're carving out time to have those things in our life, make time for it, and also to make decisions that take us to those moments of joy, those moments of laughter, of saying yes to friends that make us laugh all the time. So another thing that I'm going to be more intentional about, as I said, is listening, but it's also asking for help if I need it. So I know that a lot of our guests on the Afterlight have talked a lot about trusting, have talked a lot about intuition, have talked about listening, have talked about asking for help from your spirit team, from the creator, from, divine love, from the angels, from your spirit guides, however you want to, sort of label it. And I'd like to encourage you to think about, when's the last time that you asked for help on something? Are you struggling with something that, maybe you want a new perspective or a new idea or a hand up or some guidance or a new opportunity or a friendly, mentor or teacher to come along? These are things that we can be intentional about if we want to attract them, that we just need to ask. And then when we ask, we just need to listen. Now, one thing I do want to recommend and just remind you is that there's actually no wrong way of asking for help. However you want to ask for help is absolutely fine. So sometimes for me, I talk out loud and then the answers come, or sometimes I'll write down my wishes. And this is something that I learned from one of our previous guests, Michelle R. Price, the Lightworker, is she always writes her wishes or her intentions as though they've already happened. So she'll say something along the lines of, I'd like to thank you in advance, divine love, or I'd like to thank you in advance, spirit guides, for, helping me create an amazing life of abundance, helping me to attract that dream home or that dream job or whatever the case may be. So, when's the last time you asked for help? Why not start now? And then be intentional about all the things that you'd like assistance with or what you'd like to attract for in your life, and give thanks for that. Gratitude. I'm sure you've heard me say on the show before that often when I'm grateful, I always go, thank you, thank you, thank you, more please, which is always, my indicator to the universe to say, this I like, this I'd like more of. Thank you so much. Bring it on. Another way of asking for help as well is actually just to say, please help me, or asking the how or asking the where. Michelle said that she actually says to, the creator, the spirit team, or whoever she speaks with, I always talk to the creator or spirit or my spirit guides and angels. But she always says, I'm an empty vessel. Use me as you will. So I love that. I'm an empty vessel. Use me as you will. That's definitely a sure way to get guidance and to get guidance that's for the highest good of all concerned. That's always a really good thing that you could also put in there, for the highest good of all concerned. One thing I also learned from Marianne Williams, which was taken from the book A Course in Miracles, was, where would you have me go? And what would you have me do? And what would you have me say? And to whom? And I love that, because sometimes if we just don't know what brings us joy, or don't know what makes us happy, or we're not sure what to ask for help with, if we just create an opportunity for inspiration to enter by saying, I'm an empty vessel, use me as you will, or where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? What we're doing is we're putting trust in the universe that the things that are right for us, for our highest good and for the highest good of all concerned, will find their way to us. And then it's just our job to just listen and act. So hopefully I've given you a few things to think about wherever you are in the world. If you catch this live, if you don't, if you catch it, kind of, maybe in a few weeks from now, or whatever the case may be, you can always be intentional about what you'd like to attract. You don't need to wait for the end of the year, or the beginning of a year, beginning of a new moon, although I know that's a good time to do these things as well. You really, I believe anyway, you can really decide at any moment that you want to turn things around, that you want to be more intentional, and that you want to attract more of what you love in your life to you. So I would love to know your takeaways. Please do send me a DM over on Instagram, over on Facebook. Again, you can just find the podcast at the Afterlight Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, for subscribing, and for sharing this podcast with your friends. Again, the more people that can listen, the more people that know about the Afterlight, the more that these, hopefully helpful messages and, spirit channeled connections and communications can reach people. And you never know, sometimes one little piece of wisdom, it's happened for me, can change your entire life, can change the entire trajectory of my life, your life. So let's continue to get this podcast out there. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the very best. Bring on 2021. I am pumped, and I'm going to be here with you along the journey. Don't forget, new episodes drop every single Thursday. And again, if you'd like to be a guest, send us a DM or an email to welcometotheafterlight@gmail.com. If you're loving this show, if there's things that you'd like to hear on the podcast, please do also reach out at any time. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.